The air was heavy with dust and silence when the door to the tomb finally opened. The narrow tunnel, sealed for over 3,000 years, gave off a smell like old earth and forgotten time. The lead archaeologist, Dr. James Carter, pointed his flashlight into the darkness ahead. What the beam revealed made everyone in the chamber freeze. There, carved deep into the stone walls, were lines of gold and blue symbols glowing faintly as if they were alive. The carvings showed scenes no one had ever seen before, priests holding strange curved tools, pharaohs stepping through a gate made of stars, and what looked like people lying inside glowing circles. It was unlike any other tomb found in the Valley of the Kings. The team had expected another royal resting place, perhaps a small tomb of a forgotten prince, but this was something different. The walls pulsed faintly when touched, as though the stone itself was breathing. In the middle of the chamber stood a large stone sarcophagus shaped like a lion, sealed shut. It wasn't the design of the 18th dynasty or any known era. It looked older, far older. Dr. Carter's hands trembled as he brushed away the dust from the edge of the lid. Hieroglyphs surrounded it, repeating the same words over and over again, the temple of the journey beyond the sky. Suddenly, one of the workers stumbled backward. He had leaned too close to the carvings, and the faint blue glow from the walls had brightened for just a second. The sound that followed was a deep, low hum, like a vibration from deep inside the earth. Every flashlight flickered. The air grew cold. No one spoke. Then the sound stopped, and the glow dimmed again. Dr. Carter whispered, "No one touches anything until we know what this is." He didn't know it yet, but they had just opened the first door into Egypt's most mysterious afterlife temple, a secret built for a purpose no one had ever guessed. And yet, something inside that tomb was waiting for them. To understand what led to that shocking moment, we must go back several weeks earlier, when Dr. Carter and his team first arrived at the Valley of the Kings. It was early morning, and the desert stretched wide and silent under a pale sun. The valley was already famous for holding the tombs of great pharaohs, Ramses, Seti, and the boy king Tutankhamun, but this new excavation site was different. Satellite scans had shown unusual shapes buried under the rock, much deeper than any known tomb. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities had approved Carter's team to investigate, but with one rule: the site must remain secret until they knew exactly what they had found. Dr. Carter had spent his whole life studying the Valley of the Kings. He was one of the few experts who believed there were still undiscovered tombs hidden beneath the sand. For him, this wasn't just a dig, it was a dream. The team was small but skilled. Sarah, a language expert who could read ancient hieroglyphs like they were modern words, Omar, the local foreman who had worked on dozens of excavations, and two young archaeologists, Daniel and Chloe, who were recording the site. They worked long hours, often in silence, brushing through layers of stone and dust that hadn't been touched in millennia. Days passed, then weeks. At first, they found nothing but broken pottery and small pieces of painted plaster. It looked like another false lead. But then, one afternoon, Daniel's brush uncovered the edge of a cut stone door deep beneath the rock. The door wasn't carved like the others found in the valley. It was smooth and curved, with a line running through the center. The team cleared more dust away and found faint symbols etched into the surface. They weren't the normal hieroglyphs seen on tombs. These were spirals, stars, and strange circular patterns. Sarah tilted her head. "These are not words," she said softly. "They look more like directions." The door was sealed shut. No amount of force would move it. So they decided to use a tiny drill to remove a piece from the side, just enough to look inside. As the drill bit pierced the stone, a rush of cold air escaped. The pressure difference startled everyone. Omar stepped back, muttering a short prayer. Dr. Carter, his voice calm but shaking, whispered, "This chamber hasn't been opened in thousands of years." Through the small hole, they pushed a fiber optic camera. What they saw made them gasp. The room inside glowed faintly, lit not by fire or sunlight but by a strange blue reflection on the walls. The carvings were bright and alive, not faded. And there was movement, tiny particles floating in the air like dust caught in sunlight. "It's sealed perfectly," Sarah said. "That glow, it's not from our light. It's coming from the paint itself." They worked carefully for 2 more days before the entire stone door could be moved. When it finally shifted, it made no sound. Behind it was a long tunnel leading downward. The air was cool, dry, and untouched. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and marked with more of those unfamiliar symbols. Every 10 steps, the tunnel sloped lower, as if leading into the heart of the mountain. The first chamber they entered was simple, empty except for a few clay jars and fragments of tools. But the second chamber was different. In its center stood a large stone table, perfectly square, with narrow channels carved along the edges. Sarah ran her fingers along the grooves and frowned. "This looks like a table used for the opening of the mouth ceremony," she said, naming the ancient ritual believed to give life to statues and mummies. "But it's much larger than any I've seen. And these channels, they weren't for oil or perfume. They lead down into the floor." The deeper they went, the more confusing the design became. It didn't look like a tomb meant only for burial, it looked like a place built for processions or rituals, like a temple hidden inside the rock. On the walls, scenes showed groups of priests wearing tall masks, carrying long rods tipped with symbols of stars and suns. And among them stood a single figure, a pharaoh with a crown shaped like twin serpents. His name, carved clearly above him, was Neb-Keperor. Sarah's eyes widened. "That was Tutankhamun's full royal name," she whispered. "But this tomb is nowhere near his." The idea that there could be a second resting place connected to Tutankhamun's name shocked the team. Perhaps it was built for a priest who served him, or maybe, as some legends said, it was one of the afterlife temples mentioned in ancient texts, places where the soul was said to journey after death before entering eternity. For several nights, the team slept in shifts near the entrance. They began finding more evidence that this was no ordinary tomb: large stone lids that seemed to cover hollow spaces, traces of strange oils that hadn't dried after centuries, and fragments of obsidian mirrors used by priests to see the next world. Then came the discovery of the sarcophagus chamber, the same one from the beginning of this story. It was carved entirely from black granite, polished to a shine even after millennia. Strange hieroglyphs repeated over its lid, warning intruders about the path between worlds. Dr. Carter and his team debated what to do next. Opening a sealed sarcophagus could destroy delicate remains or cause damage. But the more they studied the inscriptions, the clearer it became that this tomb wasn't made for a body, it was made for a ritual. "These aren't funerary texts," Sarah said. "They're instructions. This isn't a burial site, it's something else. It's a machine of stone." That night, the wind howled through the valley. The team gathered their lamps and tools to make final measurements before resting. But when Daniel checked the main tunnel entrance, he froze. The blue glow from the carvings had returned, stronger this time. The light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. The team rushed over, whispering nervously. The air was colder now, and the deep humming sound was back, louder than before. Sarah raised her flashlight toward the carvings and said, almost to herself, "They're responding to something. Maybe to us." Then, as if answering her, the sarcophagus lid shifted a fraction of an inch on its own, letting out a small breath of air that smelled of cedar and resin. Everyone stepped back. The lights flickered. The hum deepened. And then, the sound stopped. Dr. Carter slowly stepped forward, his face pale under the flashlight glow. "Did anyone touch it?" he asked. No one had. The room was silent again, the blue glow fading. But they all knew something had changed. From that moment, the team understood that what they had uncovered wasn't just another tomb, it was a key. A key to something vast, ancient, and beyond anything written in history books. And inside that sealed chamber lay the first clue to Egypt's untold truth about the afterlife temples. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that the tomb hadn't been waiting for them to open it. It had been waiting to wake up. The light flickered again that night. It wasn't from the team's lanterns or flashlights, it was coming from inside the sarcophagus. A faint blue shimmer, like the glow of moonlight reflected through water, seeped out from the thin gap where the lid had shifted. The sound returned too, low, rhythmic, almost like breathing. No one dared move closer. Dr. Carter's voice was a whisper. "Get the cameras rolling." Sarah grabbed her equipment, her hands trembling, and turned on the recorder. Daniel aimed his light toward the stone lion-shaped coffin. Omar muttered a prayer under his breath. The glow pulsed once, twice, and then faded again. Silence. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Sarah broke the quiet. "It's reacting. To sound. Or movement. Or maybe to us being here." Dr. Carter frowned. "We need to get samples, of the paint, the air, the resin. Everything." But deep down, all of them felt the same unease. They were inside a place where time itself felt strange. Their watches ticked slower. The air seemed to hum in their lungs. The deeper they went into the tomb, the more it felt like it was alive, as if it were aware of them. The next morning, the valley was calm again. The desert sky burned orange. The mountains stood still as if pretending nothing had happened. But the tomb below buzzed quietly, like a secret beneath the sand. Dr. Carter ordered the team to open the sarcophagus slowly, using padded levers and ropes so they wouldn't damage the ancient stone. It took hours. The lid barely moved, as if something inside was holding it shut. Finally, with one last heave, it shifted enough for a faint gust of air to escape. The scent of incense and resin filled the chamber, not the smell of decay, but of preservation. They shone their lights inside. At first, they saw only darkness. Then, slowly, a shape appeared, a mummy, wrapped in thick linen strips, its surface coated with a layer of golden dust. Around it were strange objects not seen in any other burial, a bronze sphere etched with constellations, a copper rod engraved with spirals, and a disc that looked like it had been made from glass, but the glass shimmered with colors like oil on water. Sarah whispered, "These aren't funerary items. They're instruments." Omar crossed himself. "Maybe this tomb was never meant to keep someone dead," he said softly. "Maybe it was meant to keep someone alive." Dr. Carter didn't answer. He leaned closer to study the carvings around the coffin. The inscription spoke of a ritual, the ceremony of the second sun. It described how the priests would prepare the pharaoh's spirit not to rest, but to rise again in the next life. The walls showed them using rods and spheres to awaken the breath of Ra, the life-giving force that connected heaven and earth. Then Sarah noticed something chilling. One line of hieroglyphs described the ceremony's final step. "Only when the voice of the living joins the silence of the dead, the gate shall open." Sarah turned to Dr. Carter, her eyes wide. "It's describing a sound. A tone. Maybe a chant. The humming last night, it was part of it." The pieces began to fall into place. The tomb wasn't a resting place, it was a kind of chamber designed to resonate, like an instrument carved into the mountain. When the right sounds or frequencies filled it, the walls vibrated, and the strange glowing minerals reacted. The ancient Egyptians had built a temple of sound and stone. Dr. Carter couldn't believe it. "They didn't just believe in the afterlife," he said. "They built machines to reach it." That day, the team set up sensitive microphones and scanners. They wanted to measure the frequency of the hum that had shaken the chamber. The equipment flickered with readings they couldn't explain, low vibrations that seemed to pulse from deep within the stone. When they replayed the recordings, they could hear something beyond the hum, faint whispers, rhythmic, like chanting voices buried in the echo. No one could translate the words, but Sarah felt sure they were ancient. "They're speaking the opening of the mouth rites," she murmured. But, slower. Almost mechanical. Then came the real discovery. Daniel, examining one of the side walls, noticed a thin crack near a painted image of the pharaoh standing before a stargate. When he shined a light through it, he saw a faint glint. "There's another chamber behind this wall," he said. The team worked for hours, carefully removing small stones. The wall finally gave way, revealing a narrow passage filled with darkness. The air that escaped was freezing cold, like it came from another world. Dr. Carter went first, crawling through the opening. His light fell on something that made him stop breathing. There were no mummies, no gold, no offerings, only machines. Not machines like we know today, but carved shapes of gears and arms, perfectly symmetrical, made from metal that had not rusted. Each one was engraved with tiny hieroglyphs and star patterns. In the center of the room stood a tall stone column covered in gold leaf, with a bowl-like top and a hole running down its middle. It looked like it could hold something, or transmit something. Sarah crawled in behind him and froze. "This can't be right," she whispered. "They didn't have this kind of craftsmanship." But they did. Because what they were looking at wasn't metal in the modern sense. When Dr. Carter touched one of the surfaces, it was cool and rough like stone, but it gave off a faint hum, like the walls of the first chamber. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The blue glow returned, not from the walls this time, but from the column itself. The carvings began to shimmer, and that low hum filled the space once more. Sarah gasped. "It's reacting to us again." Omar shouted from the main chamber, "Doctor! The sarcophagus, it's glowing too." Dr. Carter turned toward the tunnel just in time to see blue light spilling through it like fog. It rolled across the floor, lighting up every carving. The temperature dropped. The hum grew louder, deeper, until it felt like it was coming from inside their chests. Then, a voice. Not a human one. It came from the direction of the sarcophagus, deep and vibrating, echoing off the walls. The sound was not language, but everyone could feel what it meant. It was a command. A call. Sarah clutched the camera. "It's coming from the mummy," she said. Dr. Carter's eyes widened. "No, it's coming from the chamber itself." The floor trembled slightly. The light pulsed faster. Daniel screamed from behind them, "The readings are off the scale. The walls are resonating." And then, as quickly as it began, the light went out. Everything fell silent again, the blue glow gone, the hum stopped. Only the echo of their own breathing filled the space. The air was thick with cold. Dr. Carter slowly stepped back toward the main chamber. His flashlight beam caught something new, fresh cracks running across the lid of the sarcophagus. The stone had shifted again. He looked closer and saw something that made his stomach twist. Inside one of the cracks was a finger. A dry, golden finger, poking through the stone as if the body inside had moved. Sarah screamed. Daniel stumbled backward. Omar dropped his lamp, and it shattered on the ground, plunging the tunnel into half-darkness. The smell of burning oil filled the air. Dr. Carter's voice broke the silence. "Seal the entrance," he said. "Now." But it was already too late. From deep within the stone sarcophagus came another sound, slow and deliberate, like the dragging of a heavy hand across rock. They backed toward the passage, terrified but unable to look away. The lid shuttered again, dust falling from its edges. And then, from the darkness inside the coffin, came a sound that no human being had ever heard before. It wasn't speech, or breath, or movement. It was a deep, pulsing rhythm, like a heartbeat. Only this one was too strong to be human. Dr. Carter's flashlight flickered once more. He turned toward the tunnel. "We have to go," he whispered. Behind him, the heartbeat grew louder. And then, everything went black. To be continued in Chapter 3.